Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now, on to the podcast.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. Dan and I are back in the great state of Wisconsin, back from the Boston area, well, Westminster, Massachusetts, from Huntstock 2025. As you guys have been following along with us, we had a great time out there, huh, Dan?
Yeah. Just got back this morning.
Yeah, literally this morning. Yeah. So, give us a little bit of props for trying to put out another great show with you guys tonight. We have an awesome guest coming up. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we're going to get into a lot more next week about Huntstock. We're going to be having one of the Pats on to do his top 5, and that's going to be really exciting to do. And we'll get a lot more into Huntstock, and there's some video coming out, so stay tuned for some of those videos that Dan's going to put together here pretty quick. He's been working on it today. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We weren't sure what to expect with the East Coast crowd. I know, Dan, you were kind of like, how many people on the East Coast really know about me? Am I more kind of a Midwest thing? But it was the outpouring of people coming up and talking to you about being longtime fans or members of the forum. It was pretty cool to see, and talk about a great group of hunters that live in that East Coast area. We're talking Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, all around that area. Not something in the Midwest. When we think the East Coast, we think New York and Boston, the big cities and things like that. But there's so much rural area out there, and a lot of great hunters, and a lot of them that have adopted the beast style hunting. So a lot of fun with that. But we don't want to get too far into that tonight because we have another top 5. And as you guys saw in the thumbnail there, we have Sam Ubel. So let's welcome Sam.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Hey, Sam.
Good.
You guys got to be so tired after all that travel.
We got in about,
overrated.
yeah. Yeah, Dan's a big cat napper.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to have you on as well. You were a longtime member of the Beast Forum and that, correct?
Yeah. I mean, all the way back to the old Blood Brothers days, and one of the first members on Hunting Beast when Dan started that. Was on it for a long time. I think almost to a fault. I was on it while I was at the office trying to work, and I wasn't getting a lot of work done. I was doing more thinking about deer hunting and more typing on the forum.
Sure. So you've, for those of you that aren't familiar with Sam, or where he's gone since those days of being on the forum a lot, you started Chase Nation TV, correct?
Yep. And back in 2016. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been doing it it's coming up on 10 years here next year. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where do people find your stuff?
Well, primarily YouTube. We were on Prime for a while, and it's just a lot. And I just don't have it in me to keep up with Prime anymore. So, our show is all but dead on Prime Video right now. The best place to watch it is YouTube. There, it's free. Otherwise, Carbon TV. When I can stay, up to date with uploading all of our content, it's a little bit tedious at times to get everything uploaded in all the same, all the different places. I work a full-time job, so it's all moonlighting, and it's been like that ever since the beginning. But YouTube is the best spot. Just look for Chase Nation with the TV at the end.
Sure.
If you don't put the TV at the end, you get some NASCAR racing. Don't know anything about that.
I guess I could see that. I could see that too. But you actually have a reason. Why did you call it Chase Nation? Because a lot of people have a misconception of what that actually means.
There's a significant misconception about what it means. And And really, it's not a small like nation. For example, it's a community of people who are all about the chase across the nation. And it's not limited to one spot or the other. And there's nobody named Chase on the team. It and that really is it. It's relatively simple. It's just been misunderstood by quite a few over the last several years. So, yeah.
Well, as you guys know, we've been doing this top 5 series, and it's been going over very well. In fact, at Huntstock, we had so many people coming up. Man, we were really loving this top 5, and the guests that you guys have been having on. They're just eating it up, and quite frankly, Dan and I are really enjoying it too. So, with that said, that's what we're doing here again tonight, and Sam has picked his top 5. Now, these might not necessarily be his 5 biggest bucks, but they kind of more or less relate to the beast style. And for whatever reason, they're memorable. It's kind of hard to define this, right? Top 5, what? Your biggest, your favorite, your most memorable, all those different things. But that we're going to go into the 5 that Sam has picked here tonight. And let's go ahead and get right into it. If you're good with that, Sam.
Anytime. Yeah.
All right. Let's bring up buck number 1.
All right. This one, this is back in 2015, I want to say. This would be my first beast style buck. And it's one that I filmed, and all of the footage got stuck on an old PlayStation, and I don't have any other version of it. So it never got produced. But this hunt is especially meaningful to me. If I go back a couple of years before I ended up killing this deer, I was I spent a lot of time on that beast forum, and I would go back and forth with Dan about a lot of topics. There was a topic, I think I started it, and it was called sanctuaries. It got a lot of attention. This particular property is only 125 acres, if I remember right, maybe some change. And it was very long and narrow. There was a river on the backside and then a road on the front. It doesn't really matter to anybody what direction, northwest, east, or south, but that's the essence of that property. And there was one part of it I always stayed out of, and it was maybe like 3 or 4 acres at most. And I called it my sanctuary. I read about it in an article about, leaving a sanctuary, and that would harbor your deer. That would be their safe spot. And don't ever hunt the edges of it. Hunt on the outside and look in, and then make a move when you figure out where they're coming in or out. That was my mentality back then. Dan asked a simple question, and one of the best parts about our conversations, Dan, that I really, really respect you for still to this day, is that you never lost your temper when we would be going back and forth on ideas. You always just took it in stride and thought about what I was trying to say and what anybody else was, but just specific to our conversations. And you would give a thought out response. And so that would always mellow me out, because I thought I knew best. I was a young guy, and I thought I knew it all. I didn't. And one of the questions you asked when I started that thread was, how many deer are you killing on that property? And I quick fired back like, well, I'm killing deer every year. And you said, are you killing the right ones, or the ones that you're trying to kill? And I was like, well, they're a great deer. They're nice bucks, but they're not the ones that I'm trying to hunt. Long story short, you kind of sold me on the idea that, like, if you really want to kill the deer you're after, you got to move in and kill him where he lives and where he's the most comfortable, and that's where he beds. So part of those because of that conversation, I dove in for the first time, and I had been on that ground for like 3 or 4 years prior. So for the first time ever, I actually walked in. And again, I was really sold on what that article told me that I had read, years back, that said stay out, and I stayed out. So here I go in, and it's like springtime. There was just like a fresh snow. So it's just enough that, it traces all the trails so you can really tell where all the trails were. If you don't have snow on the ground, sometimes it's harder, especially in the marshes, to actually be able to weave your way through and figure out where the deer are moving. And this is all pretty low land. It's swampy and it's marshy. It's an old farm that was abandoned, I don't know how many years ago. And there's a bunch of irrigation ditches that weave through it. And they flood out, and there's a bunch of duckweed on top of them. They're cool. And they kind of absorb all the water, so it's not a lake. I guess that was the intent anyways, back when it was farmed. So anyways, I dive in and I find this big buck bed. Well, what I assumed was a buck bed because it was great big and there was a bunch of rubs inside, like on the, within that big oval. And it was all dogwood, briars, and, all that red brush. And so I hung a camera in there. Back then we didn't have cell cameras, or at least not that I was aware of. And so they were all static. And I left that camera soak for a couple months, and I went back in the early summer and I grabbed it out. And I had some big bodied deer, and I was like, well, I don't know. I can tell they're a buck, but I don't know how big they are. They don't have any antlers, and I just kept running cameras now. Instead of just on that bed, I think in that like 4 acres, I set up like 3 cameras, which is kind of a lot of cameras in a small space like that. And I just kept them going. By about, I think it was October, I finally got a picture of a deer bedding down in that one camera that I kept on that bed. And he was great big, but at the time, great big was a lot different to me than it is now. He was a mainframe 8, but he was splitting on the 2s. He was real pretty. He was heavier. I assumed him to be about a 4-year-old deer. That became my obsession, but it wasn't obsessive enough that it prevented me from shooting the first cool deer that I saw that season. I ended up shooting a young piebald buck just because his coat was so cool.
Sure.
So the rest of the season was kind of off. I couldn't bow hunt in there anymore, and I didn't see that deer during gun season. The next year, I had cameras all over this 125 acres, and I never saw a deer that resembled this particular buck. So I thought maybe he was just gone for good. Fast forward one more year now, and it was, I think it was 2015, and I had put a camera on that bed, and I wasn't sure if I was getting any pictures, but I knew that some deer was using it because when I went back in there to place that camera, the bed looked like it had been continuously used. I just wasn't sure who was using it. And I was really hopeful it was him, but I couldn't be sure. This is a really unique spot. We've got what I called the sanctuary, which was a bunch of dogwood, and it was, like I said, again, 3.5, 4 acres. And then on the other side of it was a cow pasture, and it was wide open. And then if you go, so that was now we're going to talk directions.
That's fine.
Compass east, to the north, there was a cornfield. To the south was the sanctuary. To the west would have been the cow pasture. And then to the east was all cattails. And through the years of talking to Dan and everybody else on the beast, I was thinking a lot more about wind. I gave up on my scent regime. I had this idea, I called it the elevator effect, where, if a guy's wearing cologne or a girl's wearing perfume and you're sitting in an elevator with or them, you're going to end up smelling it. And I just assumed that, no matter what, if you had anything other than that scent eliminating, that pixie dust spray on you, you were going to be picked up. And Dan told me, it's a lot less expensive to use the wind. Once he told me that, I was like, shoot, man, for years I've been buying all this crap. There's a lot of money, and I didn't have it at the time. So now I started thinking a little bit more about wind. And I also started thinking about how deer were entering their beds, how they would J-hook and how they would do it because they're trying to figure out if they're being followed to their bed. All the lessons I had learned on the beast and in conversations with Dan. So I got about 60 yards away from this bed just before season opened up. And I went to the edge of this cow pasture. And I knew the only way the deer would go north towards this corn in order to feed would be if he had a west wind blowing across those cattails, because then he could see across the cow pasture on the east, and where he couldn't see to the west, he could at least smell. So he'd feel secure moving north to that cornfield. I felt like if it was anything other than a west wind, he might have crossed the road and waited till dark or something to go feed. There was a hayfield across the road. So that was kind of my reason for hunting this edge of this cow pasture. Now the transition area from the bedding area to that cornfield was maybe about 100 yards, and it was that marsh grass in between, and it was very narrow, maybe like 30 yards wide before it was just a thick wall of cattails. There was one tree, and you look at that one in that picture right there. It was not much wider than that in diameter. I mean, it was thin enough that if you farted, the leaves shook.
Yeah.
And I got up about like 8 feet in that tree, and I didn't think I was going to be high enough, but I couldn't. There's no room to get any higher up, and that was the only option other than hunt from the ground. I knew where that bed was, and it was maybe, I don't know, hour and a half, hour 15 or something before shooting time, and I heard something, and it was coming from the direction of that bed. And I saw one of those little trees moving like this, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think there's a deer rubbing on that tree. So I got really excited and started getting my camera set up and got my bow hooked up. And then sure enough, this deer raised from his bed. And when he did, I remember him just shaking. And that's when like the adrenaline started going nuts. And he came on a line right next to that fence. There was a fence for that cow pasture. And he just kept looking out over that pasture. And the whole time, all I could think was, I nailed it. Like I friggin' did it. And I shot him at 13 yards. And I want to make one more mention of this, of how I got into access this stand. Dan had made a comment a long time ago about how, and it was just in a random, message that he had written, that water access is a pretty secure way to get from point A to point B without being being your scent trail being picked up. Because a lot of times when we enter a stand and we get in clean, we think that if we leave out of that same way, that once we're gone, they'll never know we were there. And it's like the second they walk over your trail after dark, well, that's when they pick up on your intrusion and they shift their pattern. So I used one of those irrigation ditches I was talking about, and I wore waders to get in there. It was just absolutely perfect. I entered north of where he was bedded. I had taken the long walk in order to make sure that I was about 400 yards west of him before I got to the north side where that irrigation ditch is. Then I had my waders on, and I walked all the way down as slow as possible. I think I went in at like 1 o'clock, and this is like mid or like the third week of September. So it was pretty warm in those neoprene waders. And then as soon as I got out, I had my boots tied up over my shoulder. And then I swapped out my boots quietly, and I had about a 10-yard walk to that little tiny tree. But that was my very first beast kill, and it was one of the most memorable by far.
That's fantastic. That's cool. Dan, do you have any thoughts on that? Oh, you got to unmute, Dan. Hang on, Dan. You got to unmute.
What a lot of people don't get with that is, it's way different, a hunt like you just described, than hunting over a food plot or hunting a trail or hunting a random deer, because you literally pick the one tree that you could kill that deer out of. And you pick the right day, the right time to hunt that tree, to hunt that deer. And pulling that off, there's a sense of accomplishment that you just don't understand unless you've done it.
Yeah, it was, I'll never forget it. Dan used to host this big buck contest on the Beast. I don't know if you still do it. But I entered this buck and told that story, and I used aerial images, and I mapped everything out, and I showed the pasture and the cattails, the bedding area and the cornfield, and how he was using it and how I accessed it. And I won, like, I was one of the first 5 to win, and I ended up getting Dan Infalt's albino doe from way back when you used to be able to harvest albinos in the state of Wisconsin. He had the feet, like the arms bent. So I use that right now as a rifle holder downstairs. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dan, you got anything else on this one?
No, just a classic beast kill. I remember all those discussions that we had. I remember going back and forth on the sanctuary.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool how we had our discussions, and they just kind of, you taught me a thing and I taught you a thing. And the hardest part was some other people would get upset and disrail the conversation. But
yeah. The sanctuaries are such an interesting topic to debate. I mean, people could debate it all day long. I think the biggest lesson that I came away with was, there is no property that I hunt or have ever hunted personally that is large enough to have a sanctuary. 125 acres simply isn't enough. And I've learned that more in time since then. I mean, it's been 10 years and I've learned a lot in that time. I think the biggest lesson I took away from this hunt was to open up my mind a little bit and stop being so dang, egotistical about my own way, my own strategy. The second that you let yourself absorb somebody else's nuggets of information and you start processing it, it's hard as a hunter, I think, sometimes, because hunting is so personal. It's hard to realize that you aren't always right, and then there are other ways to do it, and sometimes there's ways that might be better than the way you're doing it. It's all about maturing, and this was a big stepping stone for me, this buck. So that's really all I got to say about that one. But he sure means a lot to me, and he's a story I tell every time that folks come over and look at all the deer on the wall downstairs.
I think truer words have never been spoken. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
When I think about sanctuaries, the one thing that gets me is I think about some of the bucks that I've shot that when they've gotten really old, they've locked in a core area, and that if you made that a sanctuary, I'd never kill them. Then you'd just have them alive forever, and you could have their sheds till they died. The biggest one I ever got, I mean, he started bedding in the same spot all the time. I actually ended up crawling up to his bed and killing him. But there's the idea of a sanctuary, if you think about it, is to keep you from making an impact on that and driving those deer out of there. But that's the whole way I hunt. I stay out of those areas completely until it's kill time. I don't move in until it's kill time.
Yeah.
And so I've had people tell me that, they really like sanctuaries, but, and they only hunt them on certain, well, it's not a sanctuary. A sanctuary means you stay out. I know guys that have sanctuaries that do not go in them and won't even pick up sheds. And I think they're doing themselves a disservice.
I used to hunt the outside edges and look in, and I remember telling you, I'm like, well, Dan, I can see them coming out, so I know where they're coming out. And you're like, yeah, but you're still talking about it, but you didn't kill them yet. So I'm like, dude, he's right. Maybe I need to move in. It worked.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that plenty of times, just not wanting to get in there. Now, I'll get in there. I've gotten in there plenty of times during shed hunting and stuff, wanting to look at the beds, but just being petrified to get too close, but there was so much information out there at that time. I mean, even to this day, there's still people preaching that, leave those bedding areas alone. It's just a different thought process that some of those hunters have. But it's clear and concise that Dan's had plenty of success, as well as yourself and many other beast hunters, by you got to push that a little bit sometimes.
Well, Scott,
not be afraid.
I think a lot of guys are born into, they maybe have a father figure or somebody that took them out hunting that teaches them one way and tells them one thing.
Like, and it's gospel.
all up north deer taste like pine needles. Well, I've killed a handful of deer up north in northern Wisconsin. I've never had one taste like pine needles. They taste just like deer down here.
Yeah.
And, and it comes a lot down to what they grew up with. Or what they read in a magazine, which that was where the sanctuary thing came from me, and I took it as gospel.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. All right, let's get into buck number 2. As long as you're ready here, Sam.
Anytime, yeah.
Let's do it. This one I think is cool. I mean, they're all cool, but I'm a big fan of this one.
Okay, this one here is so before I started Chase Nation. I was hunting with a team called Wisconsin Whitetail Pursuit. They no longer make TV or videos anymore, but it was a really cool hunt, it was a really cool show to be a part of. I met a lot of great guys, and I got introduced to some folks that were kind enough to offer me a platform to publish some of my writing. And I've been outdoor writing since maybe 19 years old, where I think I got my first print article published. And Jared Scheffler from Whitetail Adrenaline read an article where I was writing about warrior style tactics. And I'm not really sure where that warrior style came from. I'll be honest, I don't remember where I heard it. It's just one of those things that you hear and you kind of absorb, and then you use it later on, and you don't know how to give credit to it. That's where that warrior style comes from. But all in all, warrior style to me has always been about hunting from the ground, and basically how Whitetail Adrenaline attacks. And I grew up kind of interestingly. My parents were divorced when I was a year and a half. My mom is addicted to horses and nothing to do with the outdoors. And my dad, for a living was a trapper. So all I did was hunt, fish, and trap. And so when I got to spend my weekends with my dad, that's what we did. We went trapping, camping, hunting, and fishing. That's where this all comes from. And he didn't have a lot of money. He was also a farrier, so he did a lot of horseshoeing. He was in the rodeo, and I'm just putting it out there. We didn't come from much, and we definitely couldn't afford a tree stand. And so in order to go hunting, you did it from the ground. And
right.
It was that whole upbringing that kind of was the reason behind this article that got Jared Scheffler's attention. Plus I called out, Whitetail Adrenaline. I think they were in their like third or fourth season at the time or something. And he reached out to me personally with a postcard with an autograph and a phone number on the back that said, "Call me. I'd love to talk to you." And I called him, and we became pretty close. I'd say Jared and I talked every couple of weeks, and I was editing a lot because I had been editing with Wisconsin Whitetail Pursuit, and nowhere near to the level that he was editing at the time. But we would bounce ideas off of each other, and it got to a point where that year that I shot that piebald that I mentioned, he called me up and he's like, "Hey, I saw on Facebook you killed something in Wisconsin. You want to come out here, stay at my house for a week and hunt Minnesota? I think the tag's like $165 over the counter. And I've got, time to film with you. And I've got John Adams, another videographer that, was pretty popular at the time. Jim Shockey's actual videographer at the time was working with Jared Scheffler. And he's like, and then we've got Scott coming up here, Scott Meska, who, if any Whitetail Adrenaline fans are watching this, they remember the old days when Scott Meska was around. And man, I'm just smiling because I'm just thinking back on some good times. But anyways, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, yeah, if you're inviting me to come hunt with Whitetail Adrenaline, I'm going to be there. So, nonetheless, drove out there and we hunted for, I think, 4 days. We were pounding public land. It's strictly public, strictly from the ground. Again, I grew up hunting from the ground, but it wasn't my tactic to be mobile all the time. It was my tactic to find a good spot based on hot sign, move a bunch of pine needles or leaves away from the base of the tree, make like a 5-foot path in one direction or the other, in case I didn't have the right shot angle at the base of that tree, I could creep down my little cleared out lane until like the trees were out of my way and I could make a good shot. That's the way my dad taught me. But I'd watch Whitetail Adrenaline and I was addicted to it. And I'm like, sure, I'm going to try that. Jared Scheffler, he told me, the first thing I want you to remember when we go out and do this is let go of any emotional attachment that you have to deer, because I'm telling you right now, we're going to kick out a lot more deer than we're going to end up having opportunities to shoot. And sometimes it hurts a little bit. We might walk into a piece and not see any hot sign and we pull out, but we're going to be bouncing around driving and it's going to be different. And I thought, you know what? I'm ready for that. I already killed something this year and I can handle that. So we get to hunting and we are tired. I mean, the hills in southeastern Minnesota are it's bluffy, it's hill country. And I was dogging and I was the only one carrying a bow. I had Jared Scheffler behind me with this giant camera on his shoulder, and he never complained once about it. And I remember just being like, I got to hold it together here. Well, after 4 days of tromping, we were looking at the maps and we were sitting down. I think for dinner, we were eating Cheerios or something. We didn't eat very good.
Canned carrots.
But so I think we were sitting there mowing down on some Cheerios, the four of us guys, and we were making a plan. And Scott Meska was going to go with John Adams and go hunt Wisconsin on some public, and I was going to go across the river with Jared and hunt Minnesota like we've been doing. And we found this river, and there was two pieces of public in about a 3-mile stretch, and they were long, narrow pieces, kind of like that last story I told you that I was hunting. And we didn't think it would be very easy because of the hills to get to the riverside of this public. I mean, it would take a guy a long time, and there's a good possibility anybody with some thinking skills would realize that by the time they got back to that river, they'd probably bump everything out of that property, and it would be a long sit, not seeing any deer. And so that was kind of the mentality behind it. We only found one access point to put that canoe in the water. That canoe, what's interesting about that canoe is that canoe was found in a creek that was flooded, and it was upside down, and it bowed against a downfall. If you know much about rivers and that current and all that, when a boat starts bowing like that, they can easily crack. Well, that's a fiberglass canoe, and it had cracked, but not too bad to the point where it wasn't repairable. So they ended up fixing it up, gave it a pretty cool paint job, and that thing leaked so bad you wouldn't know. We had water, we had stuff floating on the bottom of that boat. What's kind of interesting is that access point was downstream of both of the public access points. So we ended up in the water in that river was pretty skinny, and it was all rocks, so you didn't have to worry about sinking in. We didn't have chest waders with us. We just had hip boots. And I remember being so grateful that I was in shape at the time, because right now I could never walk miles in current like that. I mean, I don't care if it's 6 inches deep. When you're stepping into current like that, it's like walking through quicksand, and it really can burn your legs out in a hurry. But there was quite a bit of rapids, and I remember us staying tight to shore most of the time. I mean, there was parts where we could paddle, and that was great. But it took us a long time. I want to say 3 hours to get to this piece of public. And if you look at this picture, that yellow grass in the back, where that ridge dips down, right on the bottom of that ridge is where the public ends. And then the flat stuff to the right is this giant food plot with a big tower stand on it. It looked like something like out of the movies, or like ChatGPT would create an AI. So beautiful looking as a guy who never hunted food plots and stuff before, I was like, what is that? But anyways, that was our access point. We had to hike up, and then we went and we were sticking to the bottoms. The leaves were really, really wet. It had been raining all morning. We were soaked to the bone by the time we got there, and we were sweating pretty good. This is October time frame, right around Halloween. I think it was like the 28th or 29th. So pre-rut is in full effect. Bucks are on their feet. And the reason that we were sticking to the bottom is because we were finding a lot of scrapes down there. You could look up, and we were kind of looking at that, about 2/3 of the way up, there was usually a pretty good bench on these ridges in this particular area, not made from like logging trails, but just natural benches, not in every one of them, but quite a few of them. And, I learned a lot from Dan, and I was thinking these are going to be prime bedding spots on these benches, because these deer look down in the bottom, and if they see danger, they'll just bounce over the top and disappear. And that was kind of my mentality. Jared's outlook on his approach wasn't vastly different than that mentality. It's just that he was really like, we need to find hot sign. And I'm talking fresh scrapes. It's been raining. The rain is letting up. And if we can find a bunch of scrapes, maybe if we camp out at the base of a tree, something will come in and freshen those scrapes. So that was the idea behind it. I think we were maybe a mile into that hike, and we found like 6 scrapes in a tiny area the size of half of a basketball court. So it made sense to camp out there. So that's what we did. There was a drainage, in those hills. A lot of times the runoff makes like these cut banks, and they look like dried up creek beds. So we kind of camped right on the edge of one of those. So we had some cover to look over. And I don't think we were sitting more than 30 minutes. And Jared gave me this. And when he does this, that means I'm rolling. That was one of the hand signals he told me when we started hunting together.
Sure.
I was thinking, okay, so I'm looking over, and he's got his camera up, and he's looking at me, and he's doing this. And I'm like, okay, so there's a deer. There must be a deer. And I start peeking around, and then sure enough, I see this buck, and I'm not kidding you. It had 15 points. It had inlines, splits. This thing was gnarly. And while we had been walking that bottom, all the cedars had just been thrashed. So there was our cedar thrasher. He starts making a rub right in front of me at 30 yards. And I didn't have a rangefinder at the time. Honestly, didn't have the money for one. So I just guessed, and I guess I undershot it. And I thought he was a little bit closer, because I thought he was closer to like 20. And I ended up shooting right under his armpit. Clean miss. But imagine, I was enthralled by the idea of being a part of whitetail adrenaline on this hunt, and I just had a 15 pointer that was gnarly, and I missed him. And if you know anything about Jared, that's gonna make it on the final cut. It's going to get published. Everybody's gonna see that mess up. And I was so concerned with being embarrassed that I kind of got negative. I shouldn't say kind of. I got negative. We had about 30 minutes left of light after that miss. And Jared says to me, hey, if you're okay with it, I really want to check out this finger. There's like a little finger where the public snakes into the private, and it's got private on both sides. It's maybe like 200 yards wide, but it looks killer. And I was like, yeah, whatever, man, let's go. I mean, negative. We get down there, and he's like, well, you want to go up the ridge? And I'm like, not really. We got 30 minutes or 25 minutes left of light. It's raining again. It's not raining downpour, but it's drizzling. I'm cold. I'm sweaty. My heels are just burnt out. I'm burnt out, and I just missed one, and I think my life is over. Well, he turned the camera off, which was nice, and he angled it down, and that was cool because the camera's always on you to catch everything. In fact, just a quick tidbit. Jared's camera rolls 3 seconds backwards. So when he hits record, you get 3 seconds behind you. Whereas most prosumer recorders or camcorders or cameras that we use, when you hit record, it takes like a second to turn on and then start recording. His goes backwards. So it's pretty neat how it cycles.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was neat that he tipped his camera down, because I needed that moment to collect my breath and kind of just, have a moment. And he just looked at me and he goes, do you really not want to keep going? And I was like, yeah, I'm really embarrassed. Brutal honest. And he goes, I'm going to publish that. He didn't have much compassion for it. And just knowing him the way I did, I just laughed, because he gave me a silly grin, and I was like, the hell with it. Let's go up the hill. So we go up to that second third up there, and we get on that bench, and we get to this point, and it's a bunch of little cedars. And I said, man, and if you watch this DVD, I think I can't remember what the title was, but if you see that canoe buck hunt, right as I'm saying, this looks like the perfect spot for a buck to be bedded. As I'm finishing the word bedded, he grabs me by like the scruff of my neck and like yanks me back behind this tree and goes, buck, buck, buck. And that's when we seen him, and he was 35 yards broadside. I drew my bow, but I couldn't get a clean shot. He worked his way out to 50 yards in the timber, and Jared started trying to call me off the shot, but I was already locked in. I didn't hear anything at all. All I knew is like I was not going to miss that shot, and I shot through a basketball hoop, not to brag or whatever, but that's what at that distance, it was a remarkable shot. And I remember being like, holy cow, watching that thing sink into the heart. And he was heart shot. If you look at that picture, you can see the inside of his leg hanging over the canoe. It's all red. That's all blood from the heart shot.
Sure.
He went down the hill, and he died in that same dried up creek bed that we were hiding in. And I walked right by him at like 5 feet. And I was like, Jared, I can't find any more blood. I don't know what's going on. I look behind me, and Jared's laughing, and he's got the camera behind the deer filming me like a moron. But that's the canoe buck, man. And then getting him out was a whole nother story. But yeah, that was a cool hunt. Really, really super memorable adventure hunt.
Yeah, that's an incredible hunt. I've heard this story a couple times now from you or whatever, but it never really gets old. I mean,
I had that deer Euro mounted with all that cedar in his around his bases, just like that. I had all locked up, and he is still like that today. It's just such a special deer to me. And that picture Jared took after the recovery was something else. I mean, I can't even explain how tired we were. You know.
Dan, what do you got for a takeaway on that story?
Yeah, crazy hunt. It's kind of interesting that there's, two real good bucks in that area. Most of the areas I'm getting don't have that. It's around Wisconsin and Minnesota on the public. Usually I got to get down into one of the better states to get multiple bucks on the public. So you got real lucky there, but it sounds like you had a sweet spot. Jared's a great guy.
I've never, ever hunted with a guy who has eyes quite like him. My dad trained my eyes from an early age. And, we could go all day talking about, scanning tree lines a couple hundred yards away for, a horizontal line and picking out deer that the average guy wouldn't see. When I thought my vision was good, this guy, he spots everything. And when it comes to glassing and using, binoculars, I learned so much with Jared just on a variety of things, emotionally, how to detach myself, because we bumped a bunch of deer and it really sucked. And that particular miss, if it wasn't for his sense of humor, I wasn't going to go up that ridge. I wouldn't have killed that deer, and like Dan said, where that point of that ridge was, if you just went down maybe 70 yards, that's where all the scrapes were. And that's where that 15 pointer was that I missed, 30 minutes earlier. Just unreal, super fortunate. And he's definitely not my biggest buck in the world, but boy, is he special. And this picture is one of my, I might never get another one like it, for the rest of my life. It means an awful lot to me.
Yeah, it's an epic picture. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous, breathtaking. The story's fantastic. I mean, you could call it the redemption buck almost, That
would be a good title for it.
I mean, like to go from highs to low, and that's hunting so often, that roller coaster. And it would have been really easy for you to just been like, I can't, really gotten overly down on yourself and not been able to pick yourself back up and get back after it,
That was that same season that Chancey Walters had missed a bunch of times. I think he missed 2 or 3 times in that video as well. And, got so pissed. I think he threw his bow at one point. I mean, I remember texting with Chancey just like, what's going on? This is nuts. Yeah, just a just a crazy experience overall, emotionally taxing. But man, I tell you what, if you ever go to Minnesota, you're going to see a couple of weird things. First of all, there's a bunch of weird stands in the woods on the public land that are made out of sticks and twine. I can't even explain. It's you just you wouldn't believe it until you saw it. It is all very interesting, and we even found a shopping cart that was strapped to a tree that somebody was using as a tree stand. I'll never forget that.
When you hunt with most people, they're just like you. They hunt the same, whatever. They're just average hunters. But most of the people who have made a name for themselves in the industry, as well as you, Sam, have developed a way about them how they hunt. And when you hunt with somebody like that, which I would put Jared in that category, and you hunt his way with him, you're going to come back a mentored person. It doesn't mean it's going to change you to be Jared Scheffler, but I mean, you're going to learn some things. And I think that that was probably an impactful hunt to do that with him.
Yeah, it was humbling. It was humbling because internally I learned a lot that I thought I already knew. It was definitely those couple of years were major turning points in my career as a hunter. Opened up my mind and left the old version of me in the dust because it wasn't serving me the way it needed to. That mentality that it's my way or the highway, that needed to be let go of. And my dad is so amazing at like being willing to learn when a good fisherman or a good hunter is talking, somebody he respects, he listens and he's willing to ask questions. He's never been the guy that is too full of himself to ask a question and to thank somebody for teaching him something. I should have learned that from him earlier, but I think just the way that I was brought up, between households or whatever, I spent a lot more time with my mom. And I don't mean my mom is full of herself in any way, shape, or form. I just mean I did a lot of hunting by myself. And I think that one of the biggest handicaps as a hunter that you can have is thinking that everything you do is the right way. So yeah, I mean, hunting with another guy and to your point, Dan, I mean, it's like the first time I hunted North Dakota. A guy told me that's been very successful in North Dakota. Before I went on that hunt, he said, take everything that you know about deer hunting and leave it at home because North Dakota is nothing like Wisconsin, nothing. And he was right. I mean, I got my butt kicked for 8 days out there, humbled majorly, and learned a ton. I can't wait to go back. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're always evolving as a hunter. I mean, I think Dan can contest to this, that he's changed dramatically over the years in terms of, just your mentality and everything. As you mature as a hunter, you mature as a person, right? Oh, we lost you, Dan. Got to unmute again.
Absolutely.
All right, great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we move on to buck number 3?
I guess.
All right.
This one here, this is one of those bucks that the story behind it is less tactically intensive and more fortunate. This hunt took place the morning of Thanksgiving. I don't remember the year, 2016, maybe 17, something like that. I was having a really hard time. I had a wound of a big buck that got away from me. I still don't know what happened to that deer. That was on my mind. I had a clean miss on another big one, a second chance opportunity, different buck. That was weighing on my mind. This was just one of those years where everything felt like bad. Like I just was making mistakes left and right. I think I learned more than I ever did this particular season because of all the mistakes that I made. But I hunted really, really hard, and I just wasn't getting anywhere fast. And I made a phone call to a friend, Matt Hazel, who is a dairy farmer, was a dairy farmer out in this particular county in Wisconsin. It was the next one over from where I was living at the time. And I was like, hey, man, you got a stand I can come sit. I think I burned out every place I have to hunt out here, and the public's just getting routed. I was close to the city. If you know anything about hunting public land near the cities, it gets pounded, especially during gun season. Lots of drives and that kind of thing. And I honestly didn't know what direction to turn. And he said, I do, but let me make a phone call. I got a friend who's got kind of a smaller property. It's like 20 or 30 acres. I don't remember what. He said it's small, but it's cool. It's kind of prairie. It's got some like cedars in the middle of it. It looks like Kansas, but there's ag fields around. There's food around it. It never gets hunted. And he's had a couple trail cameras out, and he's got a couple big ones, including this one, and then one that had like a triple beam buck, which was like a dream buck too. I was like, well, I doubt he's gonna let me hunt there. He goes, well, let me make a call. He calls me back, and he's all fired up, and he's like, he said, yes, I'm on my way out there right now, Sam. And you got to know Matt to understand this personality, but he's talking a mile a minute. He's talking loud, and he's fired up. He's like, I'm driving there right now. It's raining. It's pouring. Sam, it's piss pouring. I'm going to be out there in 5 minutes, buddy. I'm going to climb up a tree. I'm going to set 2 stands, and we're going to be out there in the morning, and you're going to kill a big buck. And, I'm like,
that sounds like Matt.
So that's what he did. He went and he hung a stand. I'll tell you what, the stand was way too high for my taste. I'm talking like almost 30 feet up. I don't hunt that high. And I remember not knowing what I was getting into. He had 2 10-foot ladders ratchet strapped to the tree on weird angles. And I'm not kidding you. Like, my life flashed before my eyes. I was halfway up that tree, like, where, I can't talk to him because he's at the bottom of the tree. I'm too high without whispering. He's not going to hear. Or no, if I whispered, he'd not have heard me. So I'm kind of like, well, I'm just going to keep going and get to a point where there's no ladder anymore. And now I'm using limbs, and I can see a peg, and then I grab this. It was a mess getting up there. And then when I got up into the stand, it was on a tilt. So luckily I brought my safety harness because honestly, I was like in fear for my life. Matt doesn't mind heights, and he's very comfortable in trees. So what took me, I don't know how long to get up into, took him no time. He was up there in a flash. But I remember me just being really nervous about how high we were, and it being dark still, and him being like, by the way, just so we're clear, Matt had been up for like 2 hours prior because he was milking cows. So he was all fired up on caffeine. He looks at me from like this far away in the dark, and he goes, I wish we would have brought some donuts. Yeah, that's what I just remember him saying. I wish we'd have brought some donuts. And I was on a different level, right? I was like, man, I wish I was on the ground. The sun came up. Matt's job was to film. My job was to shoot. Again, it's Thanksgiving morning here in Wisconsin. The gun season's been on for 5 days. This is like the 6th day, and I just didn't have a whole lot of faith. The trail camera pictures he had shown me were from October. I didn't know what to expect, and the first deer I saw was like a 145-inch 10-pointer, and it was first light, but clear enough you could see color. We were out of that shades of blue phase, and you could see that he had really, really dark bases. He'd been rubbing a lot, it looked like, on some pine or something, and he had ivory tips, and that's what I remember. And I got on him with the rifle, and I said, I'm going to shoot this deer. Are you on him? And he said no, and he had the camera. And then he goes, okay, I'm on him. And then I was like, I lost him. He went behind a cedar tree. And then I was like, okay, I'm on him again. And we kind of back and forth a few times, and then the deer was gone. just disappeared. I was pretty butthurt about that. And it was 9 o'clock or so in the morning. And again, it's Thanksgiving. We both had family stuff to attend to, so our time was limited. And he said, "Well, I'm pretty cold, and got the family coming over. Should we crawl down?" And I was like, "Can we give it 5 minutes?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's fine. But then we're leaving. We're going to Quick Trip. We're getting donuts, and I need coffee." That I remember saying. Well, it's on film, so that's why I remember. It was like the end of that 5 minutes, and I checked and I looked. I started turning around in the stand to be like, "All right, buddy, we can go." And as I was doing that, I saw the tines of this deer in this marsh just, and he was bounding. A neighbor had shot something and was tracking and must have jumped this deer up, and it pushed him onto the piece that we were on. They called this buck the Big 9 with the broken tine. Now, he's a mainframe 10, but he's got a broken brow tine on the right side. At about like 125, he stopped, and I remember him throwing his head up, and I said, "Are you on him?" And Matt said, "I'm on him, buddy." And as he finished that sentence, I squeezed that shot off, and this deer just dropped like a sack of potatoes. And then I looked at Matt like, "Are we going to hug? Are we going to celebrate or what, buddy? I don't care how high we are in this tree." And Matt goes, "You're going to kill me." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "I missed the shot on film." And I'm like, I don't actually care. I think that might be one of the biggest bucks I've ever shot in my life. He's huge. And didn't let that get to me. I didn't care. It wasn't that important. Getting that shot on film wasn't as important as I'd imagined it would be. Walking up on this deer was like a dream come true. There's this magical clip of me walking up to him for the first time up close and pulling him out of the marsh grass and not knowing exactly what I was lifting, until he was fully cleared and that whole rack was standing up. He's got 13-inch G2s, 11.5-inch threes. This deer is not twos, threes and fours. This deer is a mega. So looking at this deer up close, I was beside myself. And for the first time in my hunting career, and as a grown up, I felt like I was becoming emotional, and it showed on camera, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. This is a dream buck for anybody anywhere in the country as far as whitetails goes. And I never put work into this property. I never did anything. All I had to do was show up and hunt. And if it wasn't for that last 5 minutes, I'd never have seen him. But between the height in that tree and just the good fortune of having a deer of this caliber come out, I was to the moon, man. It was an amazing hunt. I mean, not tactically, just luck wise. This is a lucky buck for me.
Yeah, I mean, those G2s, and it's what's kind of crazy is that looks like his right side, his G2 is even longer.
It's crazy.
Like it's kind of like flip flopped a little bit because on his left side, his G2 kind of shoots back a little bit.
Yeah, I'm
trying.
I can't remember what he scored. I'm not much of a score guy.
Yeah, right.
But if that 2 on his left side and that brow would have been, the brows were kind of short. I think they were like 3 inches or something. But if that 2 would have been up and that brow would have been fully, it would have been my first booner at the time. And that, for whatever reason, was kind of neat. It's one of those like, holy smokes, did I just get a Boone and Crockett? Well, he didn't go Boone, but he sure was close. And also, I just want to mention that it felt pretty cool when everybody in my family came out to my truck, because I walked in there like, "Hey guys, I got one." And they had no idea what they were going to look at. And I felt like there was a lot more celebration and more festivities that Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, for sure. Like, I can't imagine coming into Thanksgiving dinner and be like, "Hey, check it out."
It just was a prideful moment. It felt nice to be like successful and show up. And my family has been my biggest supporters.
Sure.
And like when you get into hunting and filming your hunts and producing a show, the amount of hate that you're gonna get is enormous, and you can't make everybody like you, and you can't make everybody happy. I tried for a long time, and eventually, as I matured, I learned that that's not what's important. Um, I never did this to generate a fan base necessarily. It was more because I just am passionate about videography and photography and passionate about hunting. So I married the two together, and I wanted to bring it to life and share the experience. And in being able to start seeing myself as a hunter evolve and become more successful, this is during that period of time where it was like the canoe buck, the Snowy River buck, that first beast buck, this buck, a number of big bucks that I like, um, did different tactics to achieve success were starting to come to fruition. And I was like growing as a hunter. And for me, it was a big moment. You know what I mean? I was really proud of this deer.
Dan knows a little something about ruining Thanksgivings, though.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean? Like, hey, what do you need to eat Thanksgiving dinner for? You'll have leftovers tomorrow. Let's go do some drives out in the marsh, right? Getting everybody all antsy to go hunting instead of going and being with their families. I can see that, Dan.
Yeah. It's a great buck.
Thank you.
Steve Schwartz asks, was it an easier climb down than the climb up?
Oh,
Or was it even tougher?
I never had fear heights until I was in my 30s, and that's when it started to really affect me. And I don't know why. I have no idea why, but no, it wasn't easier going down. It was just as bad. I mean, going up in the dark, you know that you're kind of up there, but you can't really see. And when you're going down in the daylight, you realize how much you are in danger. Especially the way he had those ladders rigged, man. I'm not kidding you. Like you grab on, you better hold on because they would slide, and shimmy.
You're saying actual ladders.
I'm talking like aluminum ladders that he had at the farm.
That is awesome. Well,
but I'm especially grateful to Matt and to his friend for giving me the spot to hunt too. So if they watch this, thanks, guys. I mean, you've heard it before, but thank you again.
Matt's a really cool guy. All right, let's move on to buck number 4 here. So this is kind of 2 pictures here, guys. It's a little distorted here, but I wanted to get both these pictures that Sam shared here with us. So
yeah, he was super palmated on that left side. I mean, not like a moose or nothing, but just really massy. You couldn't get your hand around it. That webbing was super special. This deer, there was no snow on the ground the day before. Cameraman and I, we went out and we were scouting from the road from about 400 yards away. We spotted this deer in the corner of part of the cornfield where I had set up a ground blind. Literally, this deer was walking about 5 yards away from this ground blind we had brushed in. My wife at the time, she was going to be sitting that ground blind, and I thought for sure she was going to end up killing this deer. Now, this is a buck from that 125-acre property that was long and narrow. And if you remember, there was a road on the one side and a river on the other side. There was absolutely no way I could get to the back side of this property without blowing that whole piece out. It just wasn't feasible. It's all lowland, overgrown farm. There's this tiny little 5-acre section of a cornfield that the neighbor shared that stretched into it. Beyond that, all the old fields were grown over. So and my dad was hunting at the time, and then my ex-wife, she was hunting at the time, and my brother-in-law at the time was hunting. And, I'd ruined everybody's hunt. At the time, I wanted everybody to have a chance. I had killed a number of good deer in my life, and those that were hunting with me, other than my dad, really hadn't. And if I had blown everything out, maybe it would have screwed everybody up. I don't know. So I thought, why not take my boat down the river? We don't know what we're up against because I hadn't done that for this particular property yet. What ended up happening is that night, I remember grilling. We were having deer camp in the house or whatever, and everybody slept over or whatever to make it feel like the deer camp that I kind of grew up with. It was my idea, and I just wanted everybody together. And it started snowing. And I said, how many inches do you think we're going to get by tomorrow? And my friend Jesse, who was filming at the time, he goes, I think we're going to get 5 to 7. And I was like, man, that'll be really pretty, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't know how bad it would get. The next morning, it was snowing like crazy, and it was really, really wet snow. It was driving. Anybody in Wisconsin, southeast Wisconsin, that was gun hunting that year, I want to say this was the same year as the canoe buck, so this would have been like 2015 maybe. I have to go back and look, or 2016. It was
Sure.
crazy, the snowstorm, and it was wet. So like it was building, and it would saturate your clothes so fast. And when we woke up and saw that, I told Jesse, I said, we better pack extra socks, and we're going to go in with our waders on. So we both had chest waders, and we're going to hike in with our backpacks, and we're going to change at the base of the tree, and we're going to put our boots on and our another outfit because we're going to be sweaty. So we had about a 1.5 mile paddle. Yeah, I didn't know what we were up against, but what we found out was there's 2 beaver dams, and that sucked. We had to portage the boat, and we weren't in a canoe. We were in a 14-foot V-hull, aluminum, like an old Lund V-hull. There you go. And not that it's a heavy boat, but it's noisy, and getting that, it's aluminum. Getting that thing over a beaver dam was a bear. Now,
It's narrow there too. I mean, you're brushing up against branches or hanging over the boat and everything.
Well, I want to point that out. So that's after I killed him. That is that little feeder creek there is actually part of the irrigation system that wove through that property. And at the end of this, you can kind of see like the end of the tunnel there. That's where the actual river was. Rather than drag this deer through the whole property to get out to the river where the boat was tied up, we went and dragged the boat down this creek or the ditch to get. It was a lot smarter, man. It went faster.
Sure.
So we took this boat down. We get to where we needed to get off. We pulled the boat like halfway up on shore, and we started our hike in. I was sweaty as all get out, despite how nasty and cold it was, and my exterior was really, really saturated. We get to the spot where I got the stand set up. I had 2 stands hung up about 17, 18 feet up in a tree in this marsh. Literally maybe 20 yards off of that irrigation ditch that you just saw, but where it opens up into the marsh. I remember how cold it was when we took our waders off and we were standing in this snow, this wet snow, and we're basically getting down to our long johns, and my socks were already soaked. And you know anything about hunting in Wisconsin in the cold, if you have moisture on your socks, you better get them off your feet and put something else on.
Right.
Especially if they're not wool. And these were cotton, and they were soaked. When I took them off, my feet were steaming, and I'm pretty sure that the next pair that I put on got wet pretty quick after, just from the sweating alone, and my body hadn't cooled down yet. We were down to the wire with time. We needed to get up that tree before it broke dawn, and I remember feeling like garbage when we got up into that tree. I remember just my face was beet red, and not just from the cold, but from the sweat. My heart was going, my head was pounding, not from the beers from the night before, just from what it took to get back in there. This deer shows up at like 200 yards, and I had no idea at the time that it was the one that we had glassed the night before in front of that ground blind we had brushed in. I shot at him a couple times and I missed, and I wasn't sure what the heck was going on. I mean, I can blame it on all kinds of things. I think it was me. But, for the record, we'll just say it was like the lens was foggy or whatever. He ended up, he didn't know where the sound came from because of how like loud it was with the wind and with that snow. He ended up coming closer, and at like 100 yards, I dumped him with the shotgun, and he ran into the red brush and he piled up. He only ran about 30 yards. When we walked up on this deer about an hour later, you couldn't even see him. He was covered in snow. If you watch the video, the Snowy River Hunt on our channel, you will see this deer is completely blanketed in snow. And the whole hater community, despite the fact that we filmed this hunt, all assumed that I must have shot him the night before, and then we recovered him the next day because he was covered in snow. But the truth is, it was just coming down that hard. And then, yeah, remember walking up to Jesse after we recovered him, and he captured this part on film, so it's fresh in my brain because I got to watch it so many times from editing it. But I remember watching it myself just say something to the effect of, I am so cold. Like, I've been through 3 pairs of gloves. We were wringing them out. And I said, I'm so cold, I would like to crawl inside of this deer. I think it'd be warmer. And he goes, why don't we just tip the boat upside down and set ourselves on fire? And I'll never forget that because I started laughing so hard. But yeah, that's the story. And then getting out was just as much of a nightmare because now we had the weight of the deer in the boat and we had to go against the current and get up over those beaver dams. So my dad loves the story because he lives for that kind of adventure. And I guess to an extent I do too, but I'm not kidding you. That was challenging. So a very memorable hunt.
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, and such cool photos here too, you know. Like,
yeah, my son loves it so much. He has it hanging above his bed in his bedroom. That's his favorite deer.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Just the story, the video, and these pictures. You know, he just thinks it's the neatest thing.
Sure. So, Dan, you have any takeaways?
What's that?
I remember that year. That is the only year we didn't get through the drives the whole day on opening day. That wet snow.
Yeah, it was nasty.
Yeah. You couldn't push. We were getting soaked, and everybody was quitting to the point where I was the last one remaining. And you can't do drives alone.
You touch any branch anywhere. Doesn't matter if it's a twig. It had an inch of snow on it, and the second you touch it, it fell off, and it would go down your neck, and it was a nightmare for conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that year as well. My buddy Mike and I tried to do some tracking that day, but it was so hard because of the way the snow was too. It just kind of it was a little bit on the fluffy side, so everything just kind of caved in on itself. It was really hard to do any sort of tracking.
Now we're looking at that picture. I'm looking at that. That was that old Predator camo. I had an old Predator camo fleece jacket, that one I'm wearing there. And I loaned it to somebody, and I can't remember who, and I never got it back.
Well, if you're watching, Sam wants it back. That's awesome. All right, let's get into the drop time, Buck. If you're good with that.
Is this the 5th one?
Yeah, this is number 5.
Okay. I won't make everybody sit and listen to much more of me rambling, but
oh, you're fine. You got plenty of time, buddy.
This drop time buck is really special to me, and the pictures don't do him justice. His rack is actually quite large in person. What's really cool is his body was so big. This is opening day of I don't remember what year, 2017, 18, 19. I don't know. It was opening day of the archery season here in Wisconsin, and that deer, with his back legs cut off at the hocks and field dressed, he weighed, I want to say it was 270 or 280. That's how much that deer weighed, gutted and without his hind legs fully intact.
I mean, you can kind of get that impression there. I mean, just you got his head turned over and look at those wrinkles. I mean, there's like 7 wrinkles in that neck, just fat rolls right there, and those big flop down ears.
Yeah, this deer, we have 5 years of photos and video of him. When I killed him, he was 7.5 years old. I had shot this deer the year prior. In fact, you can't see it. Right at the bottom of his shoulder, the top of his leg there, that you can, it's just basically right underneath the line of that photo. It wasn't intentional to cut it off like that. I'm sure whoever took the photo, Steve or whoever took it. But I had hit him with
Steve.
I hit him with the bow, and obviously it wasn't a killing shot. And I shot him from a pretty steep angle. So the arrow was coming, the trajectory was angled down steep, and it entered the bottom of his shoulder. And, it was a flesh wound. He limped off that day, and I was sick over it. And when we found him back the next summer, he was actually walking perfectly healthy. I think I spent 9 days on the edge of this hayfield, tucked in tight to the buckthorn along the fence. filming this deer. I would park my truck on the other side of the road. One time somebody called it in because it was parked there so many days in a row. They didn't realize, like, I don't know what the deal was. I don't know if they just always went to the grocery store or something at the same time, but I guess the complaint was my truck had been there for days because I had been pulling over, filming and watching this deer from that fence row. But it wasn't. I mean, I was there for like an hour and a half every night for, a couple of weeks. Long story short, the police pulled over right behind me, and I was tucked in so well filming. And I think I had Steve Jeffrey with me at the time. And we started like whispering because these deer were in the field, and the cop was like walking around my truck and stuff. And we're trying to like talk through them because right behind us is this barbed wire fence. And then like 5 feet, this road, and then this single lane like country road. And I'm like, hey, that's my truck. And the cop was freaking out, like looking around, and he didn't know where. It was like moments that should have been like, this is God talking to you, It was really funny, but at the same time, it kind of pissed me off because he blew all the deer out.
Right.
But got a bunch of really cool footage of them, and that's when I saw the drop tines coming off. He had that one that was about 5 inches on the right side, and then the left side, he was just starting one. I'm sure if he lived to 8.5, he would have probably grown the second one. But I'm not letting an old deer like that walk by me ever, and especially one that I hit the year before. So it was really nice to put the finishing, job on this one. That particular day, it was raining. We weren't dressed for it, and that's our fault. I mean, cell phones have the weather on them, and I admittedly didn't look. I looked at wind, and I'm pretty sure I based it off of a flag that was flying, not from what I looked at online. So I knew we had a good wind to go hunt that hayfield. This is a field edge hunt. A lot of times I don't hunt fields because, especially early season, because a lot of them deer, especially early season, they'll stay in that timber and they'll feed on the acorns or whatever they want until it gets dark, and then they'll start nosing their way out into the field once they see other does and younger bucks out there safely browsing. So it hasn't really been a very good tactic for me in the past to hunt a field edge early season like that. But this deer was with a bachelor group that was still tight together. There was like 7 of them in this group. And they were all together. Every 4 days, I'd get him on trail camera the last 2.5 weeks leading up to this day. I just got home from North Dakota. I hunted the opener out there, and I was gone for a little over a week, getting my butt kicked in North Dakota. When I got home, I remember just being ecstatic because my cell cam was letting me know every 4 days he was showing up. He didn't show up the day before, which was the 4th day. And I thought, well, every day after, if you got him on sort of like a routine like that, it might be a short window of time. But if you got him on a routine like that, like this deer, every 4 days, if he doesn't show up like he had been, then every day after that is closer to him being back. Otherwise, maybe he got shot by somebody else, or maybe, he wouldn't have been shot in this case, but, I'm just statistically talking, or hit by a car or something. And all I could think was, okay, this is day 5. He wasn't there yesterday. He's got to show up. And we climbed up in that tree. It was really windy. It was raining. We didn't have enough, we didn't have a lot of money then either. We were using plastic grocery bags in the rain to cover our camera gear. We had 4 GoPros catching different angles, and I was, recording. Steve filmed this hunt because I thought it was so crazy. The wind was ripping at like 17 to 18 miles per hour, and this grocery bag was just tattered, like an old flag or something, just flickering in the wind up in this tree. And he was sitting there like doing this, trying to hold it down on his lens to protect his camera. And then a coyote came out with a squirrel in its mouth at 40 yards. And the squirrel was like trying to bite the thing in the cheek. And so Steve's filming this squirrel try to bite this coyote in the cheek. And I told him I'm going to shoot this coyote. And so that's what I did at 40 yards. I ended up shooting this thing. And my arrow, this was a younger dog, so he wasn't really a huge coyote. and it was 40 yards, but my arrow was a little bit forward. I ended up slicing right through his jugular. I mean, almost decapitated him. It's pretty nasty in slow motion. You can see the dusting. It's gross. But I thought, man, oh man, I saved a squirrel and I saved a fawn. You got it.
The squirrel survived?
Well, that's what I was hoping. I hope the squirrel had survived. So anyways, it was about 30 minutes later in the evening, and then deer started coming into this field. There was a dog barking, the farm dog barking like mad, and you can't see over this hill. And I thought, man, I bet you that big group of bucks is probably over there, and that dog just chased them. And then just like, a flock of sheep jumping a fence in your dreams or whatever, all these bucks just started, they crossed the road where I was sitting and glassing them all summer long, and they were just pouring over this fence into the hayfield I was on. And that was a spectacular sight. This deer, he was so big, it looked like a pig with like twigs or like, little toothpicks for legs, because he was such a big body on him. And he ended up coming in 23 yards. And one of the things I had picked up from Dan at one point or another was, stopping deer when you're mouth grunt to stop them sometimes can put the deer on more high alert, and you'll have more of a drop factor. I think it was from Dan or somebody on the site. And so I remember thinking, as I was at full draw, don't shoot this deer, or don't mouth grunt to shoot this deer. There's deer all around me. There's deer right at the base of the tree. He will probably bust or he will drop. So I shot him on the walk, and the shot went back a little ways, but I hit his femoral, and he only ran, I think he went like 30 bounds, and then he reared up on his hind legs and then just dropped, and he didn't move. It was like he was dead. And if you watch this film, the shot goes off. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just shot him. I can't believe it. Steve, he's down. And Steve's like, no way. Because he couldn't turn around fast enough in the tree to stay on him. And then sure enough, that deer was down, not even moving. And that was really special to be able to put the tack in this thing a year after I'd hit him the first time, finish out that story. He's the oldest buck that I know of that I've killed. And I really put a lot of time and effort into filming him, in the summertime. So, yeah, that kind of rounds out my top 5 memories. There's so many. Those are good ones for me.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. I just want to, like you said before, you've been a part of the forum for quite a while, and you've evolved as a hunter throughout the years, as we all do, right? If you could pinpoint 1 or 2 takeaways, some things that you've learned about the beast style and that, and things about being part of the forum or listening to Dan, is there anything that you can pinpoint, or a couple things you can pinpoint that really have kind of changed you as a hunter over the years, or that you realize later on, like, I was thinking one way and you shifted and it ended up being kind of a beast style type of way of hunting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first and foremost, and I think this is the most widely known, so I'm not teaching anybody anything here. Maybe I am. But one of the greatest lessons that I've taken away from beast style hunting and just being a part of the hunting beast and knowing Dan and a lot of conversations over the years, definitely realize, like we talked about sanctuaries. I want to go back to that for this point that I'm making, because I hunted the fringes. I hunted the edges, and I saw the deer a lot. I saw big deer, but I never got the guts to move in and kill them. Part of the beast style of hunting isn't just finding a bed and setting up by it and then, clocking them that way. It also means like, okay, I mean, we talked about J-hooks and how they enter a bed, how they enter their food, how they use their nose for the direction of travel, and how they'll access like where they feel safe, like their bedroom and stuff. I started thinking about all that. And to be honest, at first it scared me. Okay, if they're that dang smart, I definitely don't want to move in on their territory. Sanctuary, sanctuary, sanctuary. But then, seeing other guys have success hunting with the same style that Dan was kind of explaining to folks online, it kind of gave me like this kick in the butt to say, well, if he's actually right, which he is, I'm just watching these deer. I'm not actually hunting them. I'm just viewing them. Maybe I just go in and try it. I think if people had a little bit more of that, you don't want to go blow a place out, right? But if you have the right conditions, the right setting, and you have the intel from scouting, like Dan always said, scout every 2 days to every one, or 3 days to one that you hunt. That makes a lot of sense. If you got the intel and you got the right conditions that you can move in and make an effective kill, it's not only effective as a strategy, but if you find success that way, it is truly one of the most rewarding package deals that you will ever experience as a hunter, because of everything that you have to think about going into it. Think about it like you're a dang ninja. That's kind of what V-style hunting is, and it truly is. And you're not going in there just hoping on a prayer. I'm a big fisherman. You know that, Scott.
Yep.
There's people that fish casually and go float a bobber and just hope for a bite. And then there's like the hunters, the muskie hunters. I'm a muskie guy, myself. And we are always looking for that fish. We are effectively hunting. And when you B-style hunt for whitetails, you are really diving in and you are using every single thing that you observe to your advantage. And every time you fail, and you will fail, you're going to fail a bunch. But just remember, the greatest lessons in life are gained through experience and a trial and error. And there's going to be a whole lot of errors before you finally find success. But it just makes success at the end all the sweeter. So that's the number one thing. And then the number two thing I'd say is access. And it doesn't end with getting into your stand. It comes down to how you exit. That plays a big hand in not hunting the same tree twice. I mean, I admittedly still do hunt the same tree more than once, fairly often, but I definitely try to keep the deer guessing. That's a lesson that I took away from Dan. The way I was raised was, we hunted from the ground, and then we went to deer camp, the 9-day deer camp, with all my uncles and my cousins and stuff. There was the same stands and the same spots in the property, and that's where you hunted, because otherwise you overlapped each other. And so I kind of just assumed that, that's how you hunt in the tree. You set a stand and that's your spot, right? But, we kill some deer, but they're not always going to be what you're after. And it's not always going to be consistent. So just staying in the game, looking for hot sign and setting up on it. Being mobile. That's a big one.
Yeah, well, that's pretty fantastic. Dan, what are your takeaways from this, from what Sam just said?
I appreciate his comments. I kind of agree with him. When I look back at the Beast, there was a few different kinds of personalities, back in Sam's day when he was on there. And what I always liked, and I don't know if Sam realized this, but I always liked the people who had a mind for themselves, who wouldn't just, yes, Dan's great. I didn't really like that. I like the guy to have a mind for himself and debate topics and stuff, because that's how I learned too. So I always wanted to get inside of people's minds, and that was one of the things that made Sam a great hunter, was that he didn't just agree with people who did better, or even people who did well. He always found out for himself. He would debate with you a little bit, but then go test it. And other than that, my takeaway on the last buck, which I didn't get. Can you bring that picture up again once?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always got the detective thing in me, and I'm always trying to answer questions. And I think this buck answered a question for me. If you go back to that, you don't have to go to the picture, just leave this picture up. But if you go back and thought to that real big 9 with no brow tine, I know where the missing donuts went. Look at that thing. And if we give your haters some ammo, he's got those floppy ears like that. What's that buck out of Michigan?
Rampala.
The Rampala.
Rampala ears. I don't know. I got one that's got Rampala ears too. It seems like the really fat, big ones get that. their ears just hang down. I don't know if their skin's loose or what, but I had a real big one that had those floppy ears too.
I love that floppy eared look. That's so awesome. I mean, that's when you know you got a big one.
He just looks like a cattle, like a steer or something. He's such a big deer, body wise. On the wall downstairs, I look at all the deer that I've got hanging up. He is one of the ones that stands out the most as far as his body. The other one that's about the same size, not quite, but close, is that first buck that we talked about. My first B style buck. That was a 5.5-year-old deer, and he had a monster body too for early season.
I mean, just look at those Shar-Pei folds right there on the neck. That's just incredible.
Yeah, taxidermist did a great job doing that too. He actually worked. I have that deer turning his head pretty hard, and he built those folds in really nicely.
The taxidermy stuff these days is just incredible, and when they can incorporate those wrinkles and folds like that, that really gives you that perspective of what that buck looked like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's so cool. I love that.
If you take your hand and you cover up his head and body at the bottom of his rack.
Let me go back.
If you take your hand and cover up his head and body and just look at the rack and Sam, the rack gets a lot bigger. The body's taken away from
well, yeah, actually, I'm doing it right now.
All of a sudden, you start seeing the rack against Sam, and you're like, "Holy cow, that is a pretty big rack."
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been, what do you call it? The extended arm when it comes to how I hold my muskies versus how I hold my deer. I've never been one of those that holds them way out there. This one, it just did it on its own too. Yeah, he's just a monster of a body. It's one of my favorite films that I think we've produced, and I don't mean that from a style point of view or from the edit was that great or whatever. It's just the story behind it, because I spent so much time watching this deer and trying to figure him out. That's why he's so memorable to me. I felt like I knew everything that he did. I felt like I knew where he slept, every move he made. I felt like I understood it. And I'll be honest with you, if I hadn't had that medical stuff go on this last year in October, that would have been I would have swapped that deer I shot last fall out for one of these, because the story behind that one, I've already told my 5, but that was such a neat deer, and I figured everything out about him. And 30 seconds after I killed him, I had a really bad case of vertigo and had to end up crawling out of the woods. It was terrible. And in fact, I was out for like 3.5 weeks after that. So because I didn't get to recover that deer, the story's kind of got a negative spot in my memory, but the actual hunt for him leading up to the kill shot was awfully memorable. It was exceptional for me. I wish I could have told that story, but it haunts me. I don't even know when I get that deer back from the taxidermist. I don't even know how I'm going to look at it, because I get sick every time I look at pictures of it.
Yeah.
You're you guys want to hear? I would look at that with pride, what you went through.
Yeah.
Right.
I got a really big 8-pointer once, the biggest eight I ever shot. I shot that thing in a thunderstorm, and I was just about dying from flu. I was puking in the tree. Shot that buck, and I was so sick and shivering that after I shot it, I had to go home. I didn't even recover it, and I slept for like 4 hours, and then I went out and got it. I was actually hunting in a thunderstorm when I was that sick and got that buck. And to me, that's not a bad memory. That's a great memory, because it's like I don't know. There's something about proving to yourself you can do things even when you probably shouldn't. Like pushing the envelope. I don't know if it's the man or what.
Well, coming over adversity.
I was just telling my fiance about that the other day. We had all this rain here in Wisconsin over the weekend. Mm-hmm. And we drove by Pewaukee Lake, and I cut my teeth muskie fishing out there, and going through like my late teen years, all through my 20s until I was mid 30s, it didn't matter how nasty and gnarly the weather was. You'd see me. I'd be one of the only boats out there throwing, and I would rarely catch fish in rain like that. And boy, I mean, obviously without thunder and lightning, but I went through misery to just be out there, because I I felt like it told a more exciting story. You know, it was like, this is adventure. And I told her over the weekend when we drove by the lake, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I don't do that to myself anymore.
I still got that kid in me.
Yeah. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys letting me relive those stories, because to be honest with you, they sit on the wall downstairs, and I think about the hunts behind them every time I see them, but it's on the other floor of the house, and I don't go down and just stare at them anymore, really, like I should. And I don't really tell the stories anymore. And when you produce a show, you almost get so burnt out of editing it. I've seen this clip over and over and over again. You don't even, it's like I don't even watch the episodes that I produce, because I built the episode and I've like burnt myself out on it. And so having the opportunity to relive those stories, that really brought me back to some good times. So thank you guys for letting me do that today.
Well, I appreciate you bringing us along.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sam. Everybody loves hearing these kinds of stories. The comments have been flowing in left and right. This has been fantastic. And for those of you, this is a shameless plug here, but if anybody wants to hear a little bit more about Sam's story coming over adversity with the vertigo stuff, check over at my page at Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoors on YouTube and on Facebook, and that. Sam was just on my show a week ago Sunday, so about 9 days ago, and we kind of get a little bit more in depth on that. So Sam, we really appreciate you taking the time here tonight, spending some time with all the beasts, and telling these your top 5 here. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. Jamie asked what type of habitat. I didn't talk about that. I'll just say it.
Okay, yeah.
That drop tine buck was, he lived in an area that had a lot of ag fields, and there was a big park that was close by within a mile. I knew he spent time there. And then these were small, like 5 acre, like blocks of timber surrounded by not natural, but planted ag fields. So, these were timber jumpers. They one day could be in one block of timber and the next day be in the other. And I thought that had something to do with every 4-day rotation where he was showing up. That was at the end of summer, beginning of September, when he was starting to do that every 4-day thing. But for a while, he was like living right there on this little 5-acre piece of, there's a bunch of acorn in there, like a bunch of oak trees, white oak, and then alfalfa. And really the fields around there were all alfalfa in that immediate area, So that's a little bit background of where that deer lived.
Sure. All right, Dan, any final thoughts?
I just want to thank Sam for coming on. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, guys. And Dan, it was really good to talk to you. It's been a minute. And Scott, man, look forward to seeing you again, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon, Sam.
Thanks.
All right. So that was Sam Ubel. We want to thank you guys all for tuning in tonight for another episode of the Beast Report. Stay tuned. Next week, we've got another brand new episode, another top 5, one you're not going to want to miss. So we'll see you guys next week. Be safe.